Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 16 of Life Lessons and Combat Sports. It's Eric Hamidi as usual, and sorry there hasn't been an episode in a couple weeks. It's just honestly doing April Mania and then MMA took a lot out of me, so I kind of needed to take a little bit of a break from that stuff. And sorry if I look a little unkempt right now. I just came out of work and. Seems like I don't really have a whole lot of time to record since we're losing daylight, but I just want to get this little information out or just get this piece out. I mean, honestly, this episode kind of came about sort of last minute. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I haven't done like a whole lot of research or prep on this just because it is something that just sort of came rather suddenly. And I don't know. I feel like it's just something that I guess this episode's kind of one to get things off my chest, I suppose. And to be honest, I am going about it a little differently, so we'll just see how it goes. But I wanted to take a focus on mixed martial arts once again. I mean, I'm not part of it. I'm not doing any theme or whatever. Now we're back to like what I feel like talking about, but there was an important statement that was made in a particular episode that honestly, like I said, I just wanted to get out. And I think as I've gotten older, it's become more and more, I guess, pertinent and important and kind of like a way that I would want to live my life, I guess. So the person that I'm talking about today is Rich Franklin. And just as usual, I'll give a little bit of a intro as far as what he is known for, what he's done, and then also relay the life lesson and all that stuff. So this was a guy who was a former school teacher. He actually taught mathematics in Ohio before transitioning into a mixed martial arts career. And I remember that being such a big thing that the UFC was using at the time to try to promote the good aspects of MMA is that, hey, we have this guy, Rich Franklin. He's a math teacher, and just kind of showing that there's some class or civility in such a sport that looks so brutal from the outset. So that was a big thing. Like he was one of those big stars in the early days, like the early decades of the 2000s. And what's funny is that his nickname was Ace because of the resemblance that he had to Jim Carrey. So that was another thing that's noteworthy about him. So he eventually debuts in the UFC, and he has some wins along the way. I remember he fought Evan Tanner early in his career, and then eventually he fought Ken Shamrock. Actually, that was on the Ultimate Fighter 1 finale that had that was the event where it was the finale for the first season of the Ultimate Fighter and had that fight between Forrest Griffin and Stephan Bonnar, which basically turned the UFC's fortunes for the better. But anyway, so he has a win against him, and then he actually becomes the UFC Middleweight champion in June of 2005. So middleweight in mixed martial arts is typically 185 pounds. That's the weight limit for it. And he had a couple title defenses in that division, held on to it for a little over a year. In October of 2006, that's when he fought Anderson Silva, who is considered one of the greatest mixed martial artists of all time. And that was a pretty noteworthy bout just as far as who Anderson became later on and just how he won that fight. So it was kind of one of those things where he kind of came up in a little bit, I mean, like Rich was it was a little bit of bad timing, I guess that's what I'm getting at, is because, as long as Anderson was champion, Rich wasn't going to be able to reclaim that spot. I mean, but don't get me wrong, he still had some solid wins like beating Vanderlei Silva twice or having a victory over Chuck Liddell and all that stuff. So while he never became champion again, he still was a staple and had some really good wins and all that stuff. So he continues fighting until about 2012. 2012 is when he had his last UFC bout. And then from there, he went on to have some type of executive role with One Championship, which is an Asian mixed martial arts promotion. And I mean, that basically summarizes the career of Rich Franklin. And what's interesting is that I saw an interview that he did back in February on the Ariel Helwani show, and eventually at some point in the interview, they're talking about legacy and how one will be remembered and all that stuff. And it was like, basically what Rich said was something along the lines of, whether people remember me for what I've done in the sport of MMA, basically the impact that I've had on the sport, or if they remember me because of the impact that I had on someone just being a good human being, then either one of those, just, something along the lines of either one of those will be good for me. And just, he seemed like the kind of person that's not too caught up on legacy, because there definitely are some individuals who are very heavy on, oh, what's my legacy going to be when I'm dead and gone and all that other stuff. And he was acknowledging just basically that it would be nice to have a legacy, but he's not so fixated on that, or at least not so fixated on the, hey, I gotta have a legacy in the sport so that people remember me, for how, for years on end. I guess that's basically the gist of it. And where that kind of ties in as far as this, I guess, life lesson is when he said, I would like to have a legacy, or I'm okay with a legacy, whether it's because of my athletic career or because of how I impacted you, like on a personal level, and, because I'm a good person. I mean, to be honest, that's really stuck with me, because I think for a good amount of time when I was younger, I was just so, I guess, fixated on the professional aspects, or like the professional success, and just that idea of having a legacy that's public, or just that has professional accolades and all that stuff. And I've kind of addressed this, or I've kind of said this in other episodes too, is that I feel like in some regards we get kind of, I don't know, we get so fixated on that perhaps we lose, I guess, sight of what's actually important, or what really matters, or what, I guess, is really the thing that we should strive for. I don't know. There are definitely athletes within MMA who are really obsessed about legacy, and to an extent they have attained that. But the thing is that when you look at them personally, they don't have the highest morals, or the most ethics, or they just seem like they're a mess. And I don't know, maybe that's a cost with trying to be remembered for years on end and all that stuff. Or just maybe that's the cost of having a legacy in your work, or being remembered for all time, is that you kind of have to sacrifice the things that you would, I guess, that you have to sacrifice things about yourself, or just like, I don't know, in pursuit of that, it just seems like something's got to give, I guess, for lack of a better term. And I don't know, to kind of bring this back to myself, I had my own, I have had, or had my own, I guess, journey as far as, oh, hey, I want to be known as great, or I want to be known as this thing for, the work that I do and all that stuff. When, in actuality, I guess, like, aside from the fact that what I've noticed is that it's taken a toll on my health, is that there's something else that matters a lot more. Just like, and I don't know, depending on your viewpoint or how you look at life and all that stuff, I guess each person will consider one more important than the other. With some people, if being remembered and just, making a lot of money is what matters more to them, then they're going to go that route. Where if someone decides that being a good person or just trying to be there for the people that they love, or like being a good person for the people that they love matters more, then they're going to lean towards that. And I guess with my realization that I've kind of had as far as the impact of what professional strides has done to me, and then also just thinking about, I guess, how much I care about the people who are in my life, it's kind of like I'm leaning more towards that. Because I guess when I kind of think about it, the friendships that I have mean a lot more or matter more to me, or just, I guess, the interpersonal stuff, that's important to me. And just like, I guess the way I'm sort of seeing it is that, since this is a combat sports podcast, let's talk about it. Let's relate it to that. So there are people, for instance, like a Stone Cold Steve Austin, who he reached the success that he did in his career and got as famous as he did and all that stuff, but that took time away from him being home. And as he put it, he was all like, oh, you know how many Father of the Year awards I won? And he said 0. I don't really know what kind of impact that has on his family and all that stuff, but there's definitely lost time and lost opportunities because of the type of work he was involved in. And for me, I guess if I was in that role, I guess given where I'm at or how I sort of view things now, I just don't know if I would necessarily take that course of action. I don't know. When I think about the kinds of connections that I have with like my family or my friends and all this other stuff, I don't know. That is more powerful to me than the work stuff. And it's only something that's kind of recently happened, just because I really care about the people who are in my circle. And I guess when I have those moments where I can like help people out with whatever it is they're going through, like that provides a lot of joy for myself. And I mean, I guess here's another example. Kobe Bryant, to become as good of a basketball player that he did, I mean, yeah, he became one of the greatest players of all time, but it was in his Muse documentary where he was saying that, to do that, you basically sacrifice being a good son or being a good friend and all that other stuff. And ultimately, for whoever's watching this, I mean, I can't determine for you what's more important, because it's all going to be different. But I guess like it's going to be different for everybody. Everybody's going to prioritize different things depending on how they want to live their life. But I guess one thing to consider is the fact that while you may not have that legacy of, oh, hey, people are going to remember me or people know who I am and just all this other stuff, it's like there's a reward in the personal relationships that we have. And I'm not sure if maybe that's like emphasized as much, or sort of like, yeah, I guess just emphasized as much, growing up. And, maybe when we're young, we don't really think about that stuff. And, for me being in my 30s, it's kind of like that I'm looking at that as having more joy for me than anything else. And I don't know, maybe some of this has to do with the fact that I've heard some people talk about that, like, hey, when with a legacy, it's like when you're dead, none of that stuff matters, or just like there's only so much time that you're going to be remembered for. So I guess like if you're only going to be remembered for a certain particular, like for a particular period of time, then was it worth sacrificing the things or the time that you could have spent with others? And I mean, I don't know. Me personally, I guess I just don't feel like that's worth it because, you know, let's say I do create some type of, like, okay, I've seen this, like, you know, we've all heard of situations where people put their work first and then it sacrificed their relationship with others. And I guess, you know, once they go on later in life, they just don't have those relationships because they never, you know, made the time for them. And I guess I just don't want to be in that situation because it's like I care a lot about people, and I care a lot about the people that I you know, associate with. It's just something to consider. Something to keep in mind is just that there's a, like, okay, I guess here's the thing I'm getting at. There's a joy in being there for your friends, your family, and your loved ones. That's basically the thesis of what I'm getting at. And just, you know, that has its own rewards. I mean, going for professional accolades and trying to have a legacy and all that stuff, or trying to be there for people in your personal life and all that, I mean, they both have their pros and cons, but there is a reward in that. And I guess it all comes down to what you value. Like, if you're a person that values being a good person and values those connections that we have with others, then I don't know. I just feel like that will help motivate you, or, you know, help you make a decision. Because I mean, honestly, if there is only so much time that we're remembered after we pass away, then maybe the thing that just really matters is that we are a good human being. And I guess the fact that Rich was saying that's something that he's okay with. I mean, it just provides a lot of, I guess, insight. It provides clarity, and it's a good perspective to have for, you know, someone who's, you know, had some good accomplishments and was somebody who was a known figure in the middleweight division and in the sport of mixed martial arts, to basically be like, hey, if I'm forgotten about, or if my accolades in the sport are forgotten about, I'm okay with that, because either I'll have that or the impact that I had on others. And either way, it's good. At least for him, either way, it'll be a good thing. Hopefully that can provide a little bit of perspective for y'all, and just, I don't know. For me, that's kind of what I'm doing, you know, nowadays, and what I'm kind of leaning more towards, because I just find that more fulfilling than other stuff. Hopefully I can continue, you know, being that kind of a good influence on others, and hopefully you can too, if that's the route that you want to go. But I think I'll just keep it at that. Just keep it short and, you know, to the point. That's my episode on Rich Franklin. That's episode 16, and basically the point of this episode is that being a good person has its rewards, so you should consider that. So with that, thank you guys for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think in the comments section. And I'm on Instagram, Life and Combat Sports, and we'll talk again soon. I'll catch you guys on the next one. See ya.